Hello everybody, welcome back to Reboot Review, the only show that can get tired after 3 episodes. It's been a long time, but with the reveal of the Superman 2025 trailer recently, I've officially restarted my hyperfixation on Superman and have decided to continue this series. These reviews are relatively short and people have noticed that, but I do have an actual reason for this. Nothing happens in these movies. Apparently back in the day, superhero movies could just be nothing and be revolutionary. I do think Superman 78 was really good and changed the landscape, but outside of that, it's kind of a nothing story. It's more of an hour-and-a-half introduction to the character, whereas Superman 2 is probably the peak of the series. This movie really plays into the Superman and Lois dynamic in a really unique and cute way. I need to say something about my adventures with Superman first. I'm somebody who was bothered by the Lois Lane thing. Not because she did something dangerous to force Clark to reveal himself, although I don't think she did it because she was confident in the knowledge, but more because she was mad that pieces weren't fitting together. But that's a different story. I was more upset by the show's reaction to her reaction. She, numerous times, cut off Clark from revealing his identity and told him that she was going to reveal all of Superman's secrets because she hated him, because she hates people who lie to her. Then Clark feels like it's not the best time to reveal his secret, which is what she's upset at. This could be a great plot point to discuss the core personalities of these characters and have Lois learn to be a little bit more understanding, while having Clark learn to be a little bit more trusting. But I feel like they never really did that part. It kind of felt like they punished Clark more than Lois and made him have to prove himself, which is what bugged me. I don't think Clark did anything wrong. At most, he should have had to say, I wanted to tell you, but I got scared. That's my bad. But in this movie, not only does Lois not do anything insanely dangerous, because she's not certain of Clark's identity, but Clark manages to save her without using his powers at all. It's only later that he decides to reveal himself after a hilarious sequence of events. I'm talking about the version on HBO Max, by the way, not the Richard Donner cut, although that one, pretty much, it's the same thing. I also feel like something good this movie did that the show missed the mark on was Lois's reaction to finding out Clark has been lying about being Superman. Lois is incredibly understanding, even though she was very sad after Clark didn't end up being Superman, and she only found out he lied to her because of a freak accident over anything else. Instead of being rightfully upset, they just have a rational back and forth where Lois apologizes for forcing Clark to reveal himself, and Clark says that she doesn't need to apologize. He chose to do it. Even though he could have found a way out, he just felt like it was right. They announced their love for each other and start dating. I also think Lex is super interesting in this. I believe this was probably before Lex was like billionaire, plausible deniability type guy. This is when he was just like, I am a supervillain, I want to kill Superman because he's a superhero and I'm evil. He manages to escape prison and to get revenge on Superman. He ends up finding General Zod and his group, who forced them to bring him to Superman. This little exchange here is very funny, by the way.
General? Would you care to step outside?
Superman, thank God. I mean, get him!
Also, I love Chekhov's power remover. It's introduced earlier in the movie, and it's super interesting, and they play around it so well to defeat the Kryptonians. Again, this part's short because I don't have anything really to say. It just feels like such a Superman thing to introduce the power remover and then reverse the polarity secretly so that it just wins the battle. It's so fun. I also like the ending, kind of. I like that Clark learns that he can't just give up his powers for Lois. He needs to be Superman for the world, and he can't just act off of selfish impulse. But I also don't like that he mind erases Lois, not only of his identity, but of their love. I'm not a big fan of mind manipulation in general, and also I think it's kind of pointless. But I guess they just weren't there yet in comics, and they got scared to tread new ground in the movie. Yeah, the movie still looks kind of bad, but for the time it's incredible. I think Zod is kind of whack in this. I think he was done better in Man of Steel. If I made that video with my new review structure, I would put that in the good category. I do enjoy his dynamic with his two buddies in this movie though. They didn't get to do much in Man of Steel, so his friends are good in this movie. But overall, I think Zod is a more compelling foil to Superman in Man of Steel. I truthfully believe that exact like the character of Superman, it would have been such a good movie. But I'm getting out of point. I mentioned that although the way Clark wins is very cool, I do think the ending with Lois is really underwhelming and kind of makes the movie just a little bit pointless. The first movie really didn't have anything going on. The ending was kind of fun, but it just didn't have a villain or major plot thread by our modern understanding of movies. Which is good, since it's ultimately more about Clark as a person and his relationship with losing and failing to use his gifts. He hates the loss of life, especially life that he loves so much. He fucking reversed time just to be a better Superman. It's incredibly cool, and Christopher Reeve was an incredible actor if only he hadn't gotten fucked over by Hollywood so much. In this movie, there is a more modern plotline with a villain B plot that ends up converging with the hero A plot and stuff. The through line here seems to be sacrifice, what you're willing to sacrifice for your people. And although I think that is done pretty well, I feel like a lot of Superman as the character is that he doesn't always need to make the sacrifice. There's always another way to save everyone, for everyone to be happy. And I especially don't think Superman would take away Lois's autonomy and force her memories away just because he doesn't know how to handle having a girlfriend and being a superhero. It's a very old school outlook on superheroing that I think really falls short nowadays. This movie is so good. It feels more like a movie by our modernized outlook on filmmaking, and although it falls into the trappings that a lot of franchise media falls into around the time, having to reset the status quo so the next movie basically just starts in the same place, I do still think the story it chooses to tell in this movie is very good, and I enjoyed it a lot. So I think it has to get an 8.5 out of 10.